minds. This show encourages each of us to be the change we wish to see in the world. Get ready to be inspired and join us on this journey to create a brighter future for all.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sparking Change with Gigi. I'm your host, Giovanna Tartarone. And today we're going to be talking about something really special called Brainspotting. I mean, we all heard of Reiki, but Brainspotting was new to me. And we're going to learn all about it with Jenna Galani. How are you, Jenna? Thank you for joining us.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. You know, this is, I'm all about helping and educating people to understand how we can really get in charge of our healing and be in charge of our healing. And so I'm on a mission to just share with people how they can start their healing process, because it all begins with us. And I love how you have a combination of Reiki and Brainspotting. I never heard about it before, so please help us to understand what it's all about. How did you get into it, and the benefits of it, and how we can use it to help ourselves to go down the healing path.
Yeah, absolutely. So Reiki and Brainspotting are two individual modalities that I learned separately. And then I combined them because I thought they were both amazing and they both did amazing things for my clients. So I was like, why wouldn't I marry these two approaches together into one really amazing modality, which is what I've done. So I use them separately, but I also use them together because of how great they work. And they're very synergistic in the way they work together. They really support each other in that process. So it really seems to magnify the healing. I mean, when I do Reiki, I won't do it without Brainspotting, because I'm like, well, I want you to have the best possible outcome. You know, I'm all about maximizing and optimizing healing every chance I have. So I want to always do the most in that moment. Reiki, I had my own journey of, coming into it and beginning to use it, and, it opening me up to more intuitive abilities and, psychic and mediumistic abilities, and just seeing how much that supported my clients by using, energy work to support them. So my background is, I'm a licensed professional therapist. So my background's in, clinical psychology, and, that's how I got the start in the helping world. But along the way, I started seeing how a lot of these traditional approaches that I'm, trained in from grad school just were not as effective. The healing was still very, sometimes re-traumatizing to patients, and, really a long journey. And although healing is a journey, it just got me thinking there's got to be some better options. Right. And so I know that's what you do here. You're like, you bring those options forward because there are so many. And that's where I first started getting into different things. And Reiki was one of those. I
was going to say, I had the experience of Reiki one time when I was in school, and just the feel of the energy, just gave me a calmness, a peaceful state of mind. And I was just like, what is this?
Yeah.
And I went down that journey of understanding how energy, our own body energy can be activated to begin that healing process. That's why I love the topic of energy healing, because it's not something that you see, in commercials, or it's not advertised. It's being hidden from us. And here I am, on a mission to help people understand that we can begin that healing journey. And we need to just be aware of it. It's like we're not aware of it, and that's what we're doing today. So I love it.
Exactly. Yeah, because energy is everywhere. One of my missions is to take the woo-woo out of energy work and Reiki, because it's not mystical. Yes, we have mystical experiences, but it itself is very, very science-based. We have so much more research now, showing, about the meridians and acupuncture points, and about Reiki. There's a double-blind study done where they were comparing Reiki, working with clinically depressed individuals, with distance Reiki. So nobody knew which group they were in, if they were actually getting Reiki or not. Yet the group who really did get Reiki, they significantly improved in their symptoms. So, and that one is actually on PubMed, so there is more out there. I wish we had more, but it's getting there,
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I know with Reiki and, brain spotting, just reading a little bit about it, it's really about addressing the emotional part of us, right? The traumas that occurred in our life, because everyone goes through trauma, right? You're not on this earth and it's going to be perfect, right?
Yes.
But we can definitely go through the process of addressing it, because I truly believe that is part of the cause of why we are feeling stuck, or why we start getting symptoms, because there's that energy, or emotion is energy in motion. So when we go down this path of understanding how the energy that flows through our body, like you said, the meridians, which is our energetic body, that again, no one talks about, that there is an energetic body that we have beyond the physical, that needs attention, needs to be served. Served,
Yes.
right, is probably the best word I could say.
Exactly. I mean, you have to look at the whole mind, body, spirit. True
Yes.
healing can only happen when you take into account all of these factors. And so just looking at one is just not enough. It may get you, far, don't get me wrong. But you really have to have this comprehensive approach, because things get stuck in the body. For those, maybe you've read the book, The Body Keeps the Score, right? With Dr. Vanderkoel, right? Great book about how this works. And we keep these things in our body. So we need the right approaches to get them out. Years ago, I had a Reiki client, and, so when I work on people, I feel things in their body. I feel the energy. I intuitively will know things. And so it's at the ankle, and there was energy there. There was like a stuck energy feeling. It has a very distinct sensation to my hands. And so when I brought it up, what we had then understood about this is that was a sprained ankle she had 50 years ago. It was definitely healed on the physical, but not on the energetic, because it was linked to an emotional pattern that she was continuing to experience. So you look at that and you go, yeah, the body is holding on to that. The physical was good, but the energetic was not, right? And the emotional was not. So, and it's psychosomatic, what affects one affects the other. So you could have something emotionally happen that then sets off triggers in the physical, or you could have something physical happen and it sets off the emotional. It can go both directions.
Yes. I remember there is an organization that helps people with cancer called Hope for Cancer. And Dr. Tony, and I mention this all the time on my shows, Dr. Tony was taking care of two clients who had everything the same, right? They both had breast cancer, and they went through all the same protocol. There is no way that one did not show improvement, the other one did. And he couldn't figure out what it was. And at the end of the day, it was something emotional that happened to her that she did not release. It was an emotional impact that she had when she was a child. And that was the reason why she could not, the medication and the treatment was not working, is because that part of her, internal body, energetic body was not addressed. She wasn't being addressed. She was ashamed. She didn't want to say anything. And I'm an emotion code practitioner myself. And I know without a doubt how these emotions are, they're like a golf ball, it's like energy, like small golf ball size that get lodged in your organs. Like you said, you felt it in the knees, right? And these are the root causes that I have to say that now I know. We go to the doctor, they address your symptoms, because that's what they learn. They learn about how to address the symptoms and what could be the cause. But truthfully, the cause is coming from some type of experience we had in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell my clients all the time that there are two causes for everything. It really is that simple, yet that complicated because the categories are huge, but it's either trauma or toxins, right? So, I mean, if you're, I don't know, for example, living in mold, eventually that's going to get to you physically, no matter how well you take care of yourself, and, you know, eventually that will hurt you physically, but then that will create trauma on an emotional level as well because of your symptoms. So we have a reaction emotionally to what we're going through. Then on the other hand, you have trauma, all kinds of trauma, big T, little t trauma. Chronic stress is trauma. So we're living it all the time in the States, right? And probably other countries too, but I can only speak for, you know, where we live. But yeah, living in this modern day, our lives are so go, 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 go. We're dealing with traffic. We're dealing with bosses that stress us out, deadlines we can't get to, kids that need this and that. It's constant. And we really are in a very elevated state, you know. People really struggle to get into a relaxed state, accessing that parasympathetic nervous system. It's a challenge these days.
Yes. How can so tell us a little bit about brain spotting.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, so brain spotting comes from my therapy background. So it's a therapeutic modality. And it is, so basically, to sum it up, to start, it helps us get tapped into the limbic system of the brain, which is the midbrain. This is the emotional brain. This is where all of our senses go. So sight, sound, taste, touch. Smell actually goes to the amygdala, which is the smoke detector of the brain, because smell gets into the brain faster because it's more of a survival mechanism. We need to smell smoke before we see it, right? We need to smell it so we know what to do before we see the fire. So smell is a little bit quicker to get in, but all the other senses go into the limbic system. We've got things in that area of the brain like the hippocampus, which stores like memories, long-term memories, things from the past, right? We know that the hippocampus actually will shrink with trauma or chronic stress, which is, it's not actually shrinking, it's just not reproducing new cells to maintain its size. And we know that there are modalities that will actually reverse that. And it can rebound from that. So we're getting into that midbrain, and that is allowing us to go directly to where we are storing all of these things that are creating those blocks. So those chronic stressors, those traumas that we've had in our life. And, you know, I say trauma, I mean, it could be, you know, your parents didn't have a great relationship, but, you know, nothing awful like came out of it, but you saw them fight a lot. That gets lodged in there. That impacts the way you view relationships going forward. It maybe has created a snowball of relationships that you struggle in now. So subtle things that we overlook. We think trauma is just big stuff like, oh, I was assaulted, or, oh, I was in a major car accident. Yeah, those are traumas. But these other ones are definitely traumatic too. And especially when you have multiple of these, we call them little t's, not to minimize their effect, but just to kind of distinguish. You have multiples of those, it can erupt in full-blown post-traumatic stress disorder, right? So we get into that limbic system, and it allows us to release it on such a deeper level. Because when we're in traditional talk therapy approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy, for example, CBT, which is, you know, pretty much what most people do, then we're in the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain right behind the forehead. That is our higher functioning brain. That's the part of the brain that anyone out there has got teenagers. It's not fully formed yet, which is why they make poor decisions. because that prefrontal cortex doesn't fully form until we're around 28. So it's a long time before we fully have advantage of a brain that can problem solve and be analytical and make smart choices. Language is in there as well. That's why we can speak. Our, you know, animals cannot. They don't have that part in the brain. They have a limbic system, but, you know, that emotional brain, but they don't have the prefrontal cortex that separates us, you know, from our dogs, our cats, and you know, other lovely animals out there. And so what we're doing is we're bypassing that with brain spotting, whereas traditional talk therapies are using that part of the brain. We're basically saying, hey, go take a coffee break. We we don't need you right now. We want to get
Mm.
to the root cause, which is in the limbic system. So we go in somatically because the limbic system doesn't have language. That's another part of the brain, but it speaks through our body. It's the
Okay.
part of the brain that is helping us get those gut reactions, right? Or, oh, my heart sank, I was so sad. Or, oh, I felt a knot in my stomach. Or, oh, I just got this weird feeling when I walked in the room. All these, somatic experiences are the limbic system giving us information. And then our prefrontal cortex is trying to convert it into understanding it. So, oh, a knot in your stomach means you're uncomfortable. Oh, your heart sank, you're sad. But we don't always need that information. And sometimes it can misinterpret as well. So that's why we bypass it. We get right to where we're storing it in that limbic system.
Mm.
And then it's kind of like if you could, and a good analogy is like if you had a filing cabinet drawer, right? And you've had it for 10, 20 years and it's just got stuff in it, right? And you're like, oh, I should probably clean that out.
Yes.
It's like we're going in there and we're reordering it and we're kind of purging some stuff that we don't need. We're like, oh, that's okay. I can shred that page, I'll reorganize it a little bit. And then it's like, oh, got a little like refresher. And that's what we're doing to the limbic system. We're allowing it to reorganize in a way so that it becomes stronger and less symptomatic. So we're not going to forget memories. We're not going to forget something traumatic. But basically, when the process is working well for people, it's creating a situation where they no longer have activation, which is our generic word for anything that makes us uncomfortable. Right. So, I can remember, oh, I was in a car accident, but, I don't have those emotions anymore. I'm not scared to drive, or I don't get tight in my chest when I talk about it. It's been released.
Wow. It's, it sounds very similar to Psyche. I don't know if you are familiar with that process, but it's, changing the perceptions of beliefs, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I'll share my own experience. When I got that phone call that I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I thought my life was coming to an end, and it was just like, I just saw myself in a dark space. Yeah. And when I recalled that incident, and I use Psyche, it was now looking at that as from, okay, it's a wake-up call. You need to change what you're doing. Look at it as, and some people may not agree with me, but it was a gift. It was a gift to get that call, because it truly helped me to say, okay, what do I need to change in my life? Because, I took ownership of it. I truly took ownership of that disease, and realizing that's like part one is understanding, okay, how you got it, what did I do? I had to do something, because my body, I didn't come into this world with cancer, right? So I had to understand, and this is what personal development did for me, was help me to understand, okay, the part of me that was responsible, and how I can transform these experiences that truly have such an emotional impact on our body. And mine again is getting this phone call, but so many of us are getting impacted emotionally by little things, small things, and until we understand why and address it and release that emotional impact that we had, we're always going to be feeling like there's something just not right, something still missing that we're going after. So can we talk about that a little bit? Because, it's not just this is not woo, this is the truth,
Yeah. And what's, great about, brain spotting is we have a saying, we don't need to know exactly what it is to know that it is. Right. And that's all we need. So for example, somebody may come forward and be like, I have anxiety. I don't know why. Right. So traditional approaches are like, oh, we got to get into the insight. And why do you have it? It was from this moment in your life. Well, most likely it was from multiple moments, first of all, it's accumulation. But all we need is that activation. So that somatic experience of, oh, okay, I feel it in my chest, and this is what it makes me feel. And, oh, it's connected to this belief I'm not safe, perhaps in this example, right? Because there's always a belief pattern. Always a belief pattern that's connected to our symptomology every single time. Usually it's like the common ones are, I'm not safe, I'm not good enough, right? I'm not capable. These, there's like about 5 that are really common
Yes.
that it really comes down to. And so when we get to that, then that's when it's just this beautiful organic experience that we're tapping into. We actually do this experience of processing, but we're enhancing it by using bilateral music, by the process we use to set this process up, by guiding the person, our attunement. There's many layers, but it's enhancing it for that person so that it's this beautiful domino effect that begins to happen, that we have we have the symptom. And oftentimes people get insight, through the process, or sometimes they just get resolution.
Wow.
And so we trust. What I love about brain spotting, many things, but one of them is how much we as, brain spotting therapists or practitioners trust our client, trust their body, their experience, because it knows what it needs to do. We are simply giving it its tools to heal itself. And it's just a beautiful experience because you think about it this way, it's all those neurons in our brain, right? So our brain's about 3 pounds. And we have lots of these neurons that are connecting, right? That are sending messages, receiving messages, doing different things. Every single one of them actually has a potential to be rewired, to create a different outcome. And we understand that this is tapping into that process to get those to rewire, to essentially create something new, something different. Like you said, a different perspective will come out of this because of the work. And talk about possibilities. We have more of those neurons in our brain than we have stars in our galaxy.
Can you hold on to that thought? We're going to take a short commercial break, and we're going to talk about it as soon as we get back.
Okay.
We'll be right back, everyone.
Now, the vast majority, approximately 95% of the people of all countries, go around and around without aim or purpose. They drift with the circumstances of life, good or bad.
A drifter is one who permits himself to be influenced and controlled by circumstances outside of his own mind.
Whereas the successful individuals create their own circumstances and ride them to victory.
When you're on purpose, you're living on purpose. You will never quit if you have a real purpose.
A burning desire to be and to do is the starting point from which the dreamer must take off. But what I have done has been recorded, it's been tested, it's being taken to a free world, and it's going to benefit millions of people who are not yet born.
And it's going to benefit millions of people who are not yet born. We're some of those people. That we're spreading this to the world. As your awareness grows, the doubt is gone, so that you can manifest whatever it is your heart desires. Isn't that beautiful?
Welcome back, everyone. Napoleon Hill Institute is having a wonderful event right now going on about the universal laws. And I know understanding these laws can also help us to understand, that part of us that we're not aware how we can truly tap into the gifts that we have. So let's go into, Jenna, what you were saying before about, when you do this kind of work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I always like to just point out, how much of a possibility there is with this technique, because like I was mentioning, we have more neurons than there are stars in our galaxy, and each one can be rewired. Another visual is, think about an Olympian-sized pool, right? So larger than average. If you drain the water out in your mind, fill it with sand. If every piece of that granule of sand represented a neuron, it would take 7 of those pools filled with sand to represent how many these neurons we have in our 3-pound brain. It's an insane amount. And every one of those has a potential to change.
I remember I studied the mind a lot, more on the medical side to understand. My son, out of nowhere, developed epilepsy at the age of 8. Right? He had mini seizures. So I as an educator, I got into those books and I studied like what was the cause of this, and then I understood about the synapses, how, when we have new information, we create these synapses. Can we talk about that? how, you know, these synapses will actually rewire our thinking, if we, you know, obviously go into it and understand how they work and how we can do that with traumas or things that we've had in our lives that are just kind of like the barriers for us to step
Yeah.
into our greater self.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, you know, brain spotting. There's still a lot we're learning about it. But we also do understand that, you know, one of the strengths with it is how it's so obviously it's accessing, you know, that ability to rewire. But it's also one of the really positives about it is you're getting that processing and releasing, right? So you're working through something that's emotional. So yes, people are going to have some discomfort as they process, but at the same time, it's also accessing another part of the brain that is controlling, basically like resourcing. So it's providing a sense of almost like comfort. So it's like, I like to give the example. It's like if you go to a friend's house, you know, to talk about something difficult. If you walk in their house and it's like a very sterile feel and it's like all just, I don't know, not comfortable furniture, and your friend is like, you know, kind of distracted, you're like, oh, this is really hard to talk about. But if you go in and it's like, oh, you're sitting on this comfy couch and you've got a blanket on your lap and their cat or puppy is like, you know, curled up with you and they give you a cup of tea and they're very present with you. And they're like, yeah, tell me about it. It's so much easier to talk about because you've got some comfort around you. And so what's so fascinating with brain spotting is how it accesses both of those parts, that ability to process and also provide essentially a level of comfort. And that's one of the things that really drew me to it, because I was doing other techniques, that great modalities, been around for, 40, 50 years, 40 years, I think, the one I'm thinking of, but great, modality used a lot with trauma, with PTSD, with veterans, but I was using it and people were getting re-traumatized. And the activation was so intense that they didn't want to do more healing. They were, we had to stop and just do some other things. We couldn't do that work. And I was like, this doesn't make sense to me to have a modality that's supposed to be so great, but it can re-traumatize clients. Or I'm being trained in it and saying, oh, you may not be able to use it for a year. You have to work really hard on getting people to resource and ground before they can go into it, because it can be re-traumatizing. And that's the complete opposite with brain spotting. I pretty much do it right away with everybody, no matter what. And I've had people with very complex trauma use it and they still use it, and it's making a difference. And they're not getting to the point where they're going into a crisis or becoming suicidal, where I've seen it happen.
Wow. Can you walk us through like a process where a client will come to you, and how do you go from introducing it to actually doing it and making them feel comfortable?
Sure. Yeah. So I use brain spotting both under the therapy umbrella and then also the Reiki brain spotting. So I'll talk more about the Reiki brain spotting. So usually with that, it's just pretty much, somebody will call me and we'll have a little conversation. Honestly, I may share some of the things that I'm sharing with you. Some people get referred and they're just like, just give me an appointment. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
That's great. But really, it's like that first session is our time to connect. And so, we'll take a couple minutes to maybe chat, what is on your mind? What are you looking to get out of our time together, right? Like, do you have a specific goal? Because when I do Reiki brain spotting, I have two ways of starting. One is if you know what you want to work on, like if you come to me and you're like, I'm scared of snakes. That's all I want to focus on. Okay, well, let's jump in and let's get to that. If you say, well, I have this and I have this and I have this, or I don't know where to start, I just know I feel this way, which usually the latter is where people are at, because they have going on, so they're not quite sure where they need to go. Then I'll say, okay, well, let's start by just doing, I call it like a body scan. Really, I'm scanning the emotions, the body, the spiritual, like everything. So they get on the Reiki table, which you can see behind me. And I connect with them energetically. So I'll sit at the head of the table and put my hands on their head and just see intuitively what starts to come up, because that ability to tap into their energy will guide us into where it is needed the most. Their energy is telling me what they need, because sometimes our brains can get in the way and we don't know.
Right.
And so I let the energy tell us, and that will take us through a story of their life and get us to a pattern. that will create some kind of emotional reaction in them as I'm sharing with them these statements of what I'm picking up. And these are people I don't know anything about. So I'll tell them, just give me yes or no, and let's see where it takes us. It's basically a mini psychic reading, essentially. But it gives us that guidance, so that focus in on what it is they need in their life, to make these changes that they want. From there.
I just wanted to talk about, you just mentioned you are able to, to quote unquote, that's like a reading, but you're actually getting feedback from their energy, right? Because energy is never created or destroyed. So that means in their body, the energies from the past, and from my understanding, it's the energies not from just themselves, but from probably 7 to 8 generations back that they're holding in their body that they're not even aware of.
Yes.
That you can tap into that, where it gives you messages about the energies that are stuck in their body, or maybe their traumas that they've been, like, you already know that they've been through some trauma just by what's the word I'm looking for, by translating that energy into events that might have occurred in their life.
Exactly. Yes. And so it's very important that, there's evidence that comes with this. So the way I practice very evidential, meaning like there's going to be things that would be true, that they could say, yes, that's true for me. And then it takes us deeper into like the emotional stuff, which again, they know is true because it's their life. But yeah, these things can go back years, it can go back generationally. I did have one person who somatically, there was an experience they were having. And because I knew the history of one of their parents, I was able to, put that together and say, hey, you're, so-and-so that had the head trauma, is that by chance where you're having that somatic experience right now? And they were like, oh my gosh, yes. It was completely connected to that versus their own sensation, right? But it was still part of what their body was holding on to. So yeah, it can come from all different places. But again, the key is just finding that activation point with brain spotting and then letting it do its work, because we there's like 80% of our thoughts that are not conscious to us. So it's a lot going on under the surface.
I love that. And that takes us into the topic of like understanding the subconscious mind. Let me tell you, I studied so much, and to learn that, we work from the subconscious mind. 90% of what we do, it's like we're on autopilot. I challenge anyone to write down their daily activities for a week, and 95% of that is absolutely the same.
Yeah.
Right. So if we want to see change in our life, we need to change things at the subconscious level. And, sometimes what's stored in the subconscious, below the conscious mind, is truly what's creating our reality. And if you don't like your reality and you want to change, you need to get to the root.
Exactly.
What's going on in the subconscious mind, right? You mentioned earlier, and I just want to emphasize what you said about, it's like a filing cabinet. It holds all your memories. It's holding how to tie your shoes and how to brush your teeth and how to get dressed.
Yeah.
But it's also how to behave when, there's an incident, or your triggers will come because something's stored in your subconscious mind. Hence the importance of addressing what's there, because that is truly the root cause of a lot of things that we go through.
Exactly. Yes. People get stuck in these patterns where they're repeating the same thing again and again. And they know it. They're like, I see it. I know I'm doing it, but I can't change it because their motivation is so strong that they keep doing the same thing. It's, it's part of why someone who gets out of domestic violence, of relationship with, domestic violence, that they often go back because they get into a healthy relationship and it's uncomfortable to them because it's not familiar. And we think, wow, that doesn't make sense, but it does, because we are so prone to go with what we know. And until we can change those belief patterns around that, we're going to make the same choices again and again and again.
And we think there's something that we're doing because it's automatic. You're doing it unconsciously.
Yeah.
And that it's like I studied Bob Proctor, and one of the lessons in there was the thinking and knowing gap. Like, you need to do this, but you're not doing it.
Yes.
And that is because there is something, that there's a paradigm, there's a belief, there's a habit that it works automatically. Also studying the Napoleon Hill work, it's just opening up to understand how powerful your mind is to really transform your life. But you need to understand, you need to go through that learning process of really becoming aware of that you can change things that are not in alignment with your higher self. That you right. Let's talk about a little bit. The commercial we just ran from the Napoleon Hill. We talk about having a purpose, having knowing that you're here to do something great, but you don't know what it is. Does brain spotting help with that?
Absolutely. So brain spotting, we have 3 ways of utilizing it. We can use it for processing and releasing work. So that's where we've kind of been focused right now today so far. We can use it for deep relaxation. So someone who just needs to really get into that parasympathetic nervous system, really get into the deep healing restorative state. We use it that way as well, which again is a really great way to help, balance anyone with really intense trauma, to just let them feel that side of the coin, instead of always being hyper aroused. Then we also use it for expansion. And that is just so fun to use expansion, because we are helping to enhance something that the person wants more of, whatever that may be. So, it could be simple like, oh, I need to improve public speaking. All right, we can do that with expansion. But I use it a lot, in other ways too. So you can use it with artists, musicians, even actors, to get them more in tune to their character. I use it on a spiritual level because I'll work, a lot with other, people with gifts, and we'll use it to help them maybe get connected more to their gift, to their inner ability. So there's always a combination of this idea of removing what's blocking us that may open us up more to our purpose, but then also tapping into, well, this feels good. This feeling feels good. Well, let me enhance that. Let me bring more of that into my world, because that may open up the right door for me.
Yeah, so beautiful. You mentioned the abilities that are there, that I think we all come in. I call them gifts.
Yeah.
We call them talents, whatever you want to call them. We all come with something to share and bring to this world. And we are, I think, not knowing what they are and not working from that end, this is where we don't feel fulfilled. Like there's something missing, right? Because, again, we're going to the mind, body, and spirit. Understanding that having that alignment between all 3 of them, and really respecting all 3 of them, the 3 different aspects. I think in the world that's so chaotic, we are forgetting about the human spirit of us, that side of us that truly is our guide in making good decisions and feeling good. But we're not listening to that inner voice because there's so much going on.
Yes.
Do you find that your clients are coming to you with like really wanting to discover what that is and just need help to go through that process?
I think it's a combination. I think a lot of people start, pull the trigger when they struggle. When we're in pain is when we feel we need help. And because we're in pain, it's sometimes hard to even see beyond that there's like a greater purpose for us, right? It's like we're looking through a fog. So you can't even see beyond that, oh, there's a beautiful mountain I want to go climb. We have no idea it's even there. So as you start to remove that fog, all of a sudden you start to see there are so many possibilities. And what's really fascinating with brain spotting is that it continues to work beyond the session. And that to me is just like huge, because we're not saying that, oh, you got to come to me for 20 years. I'm saying, let's get through this. And then guess what? It's going to keep working. They did a study where they compared cognitive behavioral therapy to EMDR, which is used a lot for trauma, and brain spotting. Each person got 8 sessions. So they, broke the people up into 3 groups. They were all clinically depressed. They each received 8 sessions in one of those 3 modalities, pre-test, post-test, right? So after 8 sessions, CBT, they made little to no improvement. EMDR made significant improvement, and brain spotting significant. So EMDR and brain spotting were around the same after 8 sessions. But what was really different is 6 months later, everybody came back to take a test again. And in that 6-month period, there was no treatment, no interventions. They just went home and lived their life. While CBT, they held strong at little to no improvement. EMDR, they stayed the same. So they held on to their improvement, but they didn't get any worse. They didn't get any better. Brain spotting, it was like it just blew out of the park. They just continued to get better and better and better, even with no treatment. And that's the thing. The body wants to heal. The body always wants to restore, homeostasis. You can get a cut on your hand. It doesn't matter what you do. It's going to try to heal itself. You can put something on it. You can wash it. You probably should to avoid infection, but it's going to try to heal itself no matter what you do. You don't have to sit there and think about it. You don't have to go, okay, cut. I want you to start to produce new skin cells, and it's going to just do it. And the same thing with our brain. And it's just such a beautiful process when we can support it and have it do what it knows how to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And tell us more about, you practice, you have a practice?
I do. Yes. Yep.
And you're out in Pennsylvania?
I am. Yep. The
Okay.
Lehigh Valley area.
Okay. Yep. Tell us how you got started. And I mean, I know you said you were a therapist, but how did you get into brain spotting, and just the whole holistic way of living?
Yeah. I mean, so what really was the catalyst in my life to open me up to, things beyond traditional approaches, right? Like I knew from a kid I wanted to be a therapist. I was just kind of lucky to know my purpose was healing. And I think part of that is because when I was a kid, I lost my vision. So I had partial vision around age 10. And then in 2012, I lost the rest of it. So now I'm completely blind. Only light and dark, no shadows, nothing else really, no colors, no faces anymore. And so it was around that time that, there's a couple things happening. One, I was seeing my therapy clients not really improve with the traditional therapy approaches. And 2, I'm now on my own journey of healing myself, just like your own experience of healing yourself, right? I mean, that we all have our journey. We're all these wounded warriors, figuring out how to heal and then wanting to share that. And so, I went from being able to see, with contacts and I was still visually impaired, but I had enough vision to, really function. And basically in a 2-week period, I lost it all. And that really threw me into a healing crisis. So I started to explore everything I could, homeopathy. I got trained in Reiki. I didn't even know what it was when I went to the class. I was like, I don't know, there's this thing, I'm going to do it. I feel drawn,
Open-minded.
Started trusting my intuition. I started changing my diet. I was working on the physical, the emotional, the mental, all of it. Not with the intention to heal my vision. We still don't know why I lost it the second time. I know why the first time, but not why it progressed. It wasn't supposed to progress that way, but I knew that I could heal myself in a way where I didn't have to let this be a barrier to me in life. And that's what I've done is, heal myself. And along that journey, I came across, I got trained, in EMDR and it was great, but there were some limitations. And that's where I was like, I got to explore this brain spotting because it changed all those limitations into there are no limitations. I have yet to find a drawback to brain spotting because it's so easy to customize and really focus on what the individual needs versus you have to fit this protocol. The protocol fits you.
Right. Oh, it's so amazing that you said that because your biggest challenge, you turned that around to really help others, right? You to say, you know what, no matter what you're going through, you can get past it.
Yeah.
And find that there's something good. We studied, I studied the Napoleon Hill. Again, I mention it because his work it speaks the truth. And every adversity has an equal or greater benefit, a seed of equal or greater benefit, which means what? There's something that's going to come out from that adversity in your life that's going to If you're open to understanding and not be the victim, but be the hero, your life will transform. Your life will transform, and look at what you're doing. I mean, I commend you. I applaud you, and you're changing lives regardless of you're here for a greater purpose. Even though you can't see, you're changing lives.
Yeah. I
Amazing.
there was this part of me, because the vision loss happened before I had any of my abilities, my gifts, it was before all of that. And I just had this this knowing, this kind of whisper in my mind, in my soul, telling me that I lost my vision so I could truly learn to see. And there's nothing that's been truer.
So beautiful. You mentioned I also have another gift, your intuitive gift, and you do channeling, you do
Mediumship, evidential mediumship. Yes. Yeah.
And tell me how that has helped you and helped your client, because I think we're gonna have to bring you back to do another show all about that.
I would love to. Yeah. It began just kind of coming forward during Reiki sessions, and then it would, even pop in occasionally during a therapy session. I was like, oh, what is this thing? And, it was evidential, meaning that the statements I'm giving are true, that people can take and understand the evidence there. Because, I'm not going to say, oh, I've got your mom and she loves you. Yeah, of course she does. But it's important to have that proof of life that, really, gosh, yeah, I could talk about this forever, but mediumship has opened up and changed my life, the way I look at the world, the way I experience it, the way that I handled my father's passing, the way he passed, I think was even different about his own belief now in this world beyond the world we see. Because again, everything is energy, and energy doesn't stop. It just changes form. And when you know that there is life beyond this life, there's existence, there is love, so much love from spirit, from this world around us, here to support us. When you know you're never actually alone, I mean, how can that not change you?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, my mom and dad both passed, and it's amazing how you ask for signs that they're here, and I'll see my dad passed on 204, and I'll see 204 in the license plate, or 402, or something. My mom's birthday is 5/15, and yesterday I saw it 3 times, and I feel like they're just there constantly, if you acknowledge. If you're open to receive. And the reason why, prior to understanding all of this information, I wasn't open to receive, because there was just so much that I felt I needed to be in control of. I had to control everything. I had to have plans for everything, and there's just a part of us that says trust. And if we don't trust, it's because of our past, our I don't want to keep using the word traumas, but our experiences from the past, and what we have, this energy that's flowing in our body, is really the reason why we don't trust. Right? And it's so important to tap into that.
Yeah, when we can trust ourselves fully, then both in the physical and the spiritual realm, like, it aligns, right? So people will come and say, well, I have trust issues. I can't be in relationships because I have trust issues. I've been cheated on. I've been blah, 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 whatever it is, right? I'm like, okay, well, that's actually about you not trusting yourself now. You don't trust yourself to make a decision that this person is healthy for you or not healthy. That's what it comes down to. People are going to be trustworthy or not. It's up to us to discern if we can trust somebody. So it comes back to us, just like with spirit. They're there. They're always there. They're always trying to support us. And it's not going to always be the most obvious. You've got some beautiful signs you shared. I've had some beautiful, really beyond this world from my dad. But they're not always like that, but they're still there. And when we can trust that, when we can surrender to that energy, it's not us giving up our power. It's actually us being more empowered to ride the wave of life and this energy. And that's when beautiful things start to really, really happen, because it's like with manifesting. If you say, I want a white house with a picket fence and a husband who's got brown hair and 6'1", well, now you've just created a limitation, because that is all you are open to. When maybe, if you're open and you manifest for the feeling, not what you think you want, you're going to actually have something more beautiful than that.
I love that, because the other day it was so funny. The other day I heard someone say, it's not the money that you want.
Yeah.
It's what the money can do for you, the feeling of having that money.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
And, manifesting the same thing, whether it's a money or a house, a car, a job, it's putting yourself actually in the place of already having it.
Yes.
Already having it, because that's when the feelings will come. And, the universe will do its job to start moving things in your direction. But going back to, we have to trust and we have to believe.
Yes.
And this is not what you get taught in books. So we're sharing this information because we see it working. We see it working. It may take a little time, but it does work. And some people just give up really quick and say, okay, I don't have it. The law, the movie, The Law of Attraction, right? It's, that opened up my eyes, but of course that's not just the only law that really works to make things manifest. But that was, I was open to receiving that information, to look deeper into it and not just say, oh, this is nonsense, it's never going to work. But when you start digging deeper into it, I believe that your mind starts to change. And like, could this be true? Questioning it. So many times we just don't want to open that door.
Yeah.
And
again, there's so many possibilities. So many.
I know. Can you give us a story of a client? I know it's confidential, but like something that really transpired into something beautiful using Brainspotting?
Yes, absolutely. And actually, she has given me explicit instructions to share her story as much as possible because
beautiful. Okay.
because of her story. So I can actually give a lot of good detail, which normally I can't. So she came to me for Reiki Brainspotting. Never met her before. I don't even actually know how she found me. I guess just a search. She wasn't referred by anybody. Came in, sat on my couch. I said, what do you want to work on? And she said, well, here's the thing. I've got chronic pelvic pain. I'm at a level 8 out of 10 every single day. I have done all kinds of healing. I do have a trauma history, which obviously is a high correlation with, pelvic pain. She's done therapy. She's done retreats. She's done chiropractic work, physical therapy. She's looked at the emotional. She's looked at the physical. She's done it all. She really had a long list of what she did. She's currently, at this point was taking medication to keep the pain under control. She goes, here's the thing. This is my last attempt. If this doesn't work, I will be ending my life, and I have a way to do it. And I was like, okay, well, let's get started.
Putting you on the spot, right?
Yeah. But there was no doubt in my body that there was a possibility for healing here. Not a doubt. So she jumps up on the Reiki table. And that's the other thing with Brainspotting. We can focus on physical things as well, not just emotional. And that's what hers was, physical. So we focused in on that pain. She had intense pain during the session. It really shot up there pretty high. She was like, at one point, grabbed my hand, like in pain. And I was like, okay, you good to keep going? She's like, yep, I want to heal. I'm like, okay. So we get through the session. We get to the end of the session. She was at an 8. Well, she was probably plus a 10 at one point in the session. And she dropped down to a 2 by the end of the session, which she hadn't had in over 8 months. She had this amount of pain for 8 months. Can you imagine that kind of pain every day of your life? So she came back for another session a week later. She was still at a level 2 the entire week. It didn't go past a 2. We did a second session. Yeah, it went to a 0. She left that office with no pain, came back a week later, still no pain. We met a total of 5 times. And after the 5th session, she actually went to her doctor for a follow-up appointment for, the specialist for the pelvic pain, who had prior told her there's no cure. All we can do is manage the pain and treat it. Well, she left the office almost delirious. She called me and she's like, you'll never believe this. He said, I'm cured. He said that wasn't possible, but I'm cured. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's amazing the power that we each have within us to heal. So, yeah, that's one of my favorites.
So beautiful. And these are the stories that, you know, people will not believe, but they're true. They're true. And it's not a miracle. You know, I mean, it's a miracle, but not a miracle, because I say it becomes a miracle when we open ourselves to receive it, right? To receive it and to see that it is possible. And that's why I also love the energy work. And, you know, I'm totally bringing it to the world so that they can understand that we're here to help them, so they can see it too and tap into their innate gifts that they have.
Exactly.
But we're going to bring it to a landing. How can people get in touch with you?
So my website is holisticawakenings.com. That's plural at the end. Holistic Awakenings has an S as in Sam at the end. And you can see on there, you know, I have myself, I have a couple of practitioners that work at the practice as well, and the different services that we offer.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jenna. You know, I appreciate you very much for the work that you do. And, you know, we're going to have you back on and talk about the mediumship. I'd love to hear more about it.
I would love it. And thank you so much for having me.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And until next time, I'm your host, Giovanna Tardavone. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining me on Sparking Change with Gigi. I hope that our episode today has ignited a spark within you to create positive change in your own life and in the world around you. To learn more about how you can become a guest or supporter, head over to sparkingchange.now.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing, sharing, and leaving a review. Your feedback is incredibly valuable to me, and it helps me to continue producing content that sparks change in each of us and the world. You can find us on various platforms, including Google Play Store, Apple App Store, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, Android TV, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to having you join me again next week on Sparking Change with Gigi.